Hello, and welcome to my first book review video. My name's Paddy and I'm a big fan of books, mostly science fiction and fantasy, but not entirely. I read some other things as well sometimes. I buy my books second-hand, almost entirely from second-hand shops, and that means I'm a bit of a kind of off-piste book explorer. I don't read things that are necessarily on the top of the bestseller lists or have had good reviews. I just read whatever's there. And sometimes that's brilliant, sometimes it's really awful. And I thought you might find it interesting to hear what I've been reading recently, and for me to give a bit of a review about what books I've enjoyed, what books maybe you should avoid. I'm going to start not with science fiction or fantasy, but with some cat books. I've read a couple of cat books. I like cats. A lot of people who read science fiction, I think, like cats. Does that sound right? Maybe. This is the Devious book for cats by Fluffy and Bonkers. The real authors have real names. They've also written a book for dogs by some amusing dog name authors rather than Fluffy and Bonkers. Good names for cats, actually, Fluffy and Bonkers, but a bit silly. This book is kind of like a contrived manual or encyclopedia for cats, kind of advising a cat how to maximise its cat-like behaviour, so how to scratch a sofa properly, how to climb to high places, and it sort of speculates a bit on why cats might do the kind of things cats do. So if you've ever wondered about what cats think or what motivates them, this won't give you any ideas at all about what really scientifically does it. There's no science in this at all, I would say, but it's amusing and it's fun. So there are sort of schedules on how a cat should spend its day, advice on how to sleep, different sleeping positions, stuff about relatives and ancestors of cats. It's good fun. It kept me going. There are a few kind of laugh out loud moments in it. It's not a book I'm going to keep. I have a large bookcase of books that I've enjoyed so much that I want to read again, and I do read them again. Other books go back to the second-hand shop for somebody else to discover. Maybe you might discover them if you live in the right area. Yeah, this was a fun book. I think my favourite bit in it, I might even be able to find a page here, was an account of a famous cat who climbed a tall building, which kind of is about how cats like to climb to the tops of things and sometimes get stuck. And this was written like a kind of climber's journal of, the ascent of Everest of the North Face or something, in a kind of heroic style. The writing was good and it was fun. If you like cats, you might enjoy reading this once. It's the kind of book you might not even read all of it. You might just dip into a few bits of it and then find it's gathering dust and you want to get rid of it. So it's a book that goes from kind of cat fan to cat fan, and we'll probably go through more hands after mine. So it's goodbye to that book. Another cat book. This is Dewey, about a cat who lived in a library. A kind of cat biography, really, in a way. This is another book I'm not going to keep, I don't think, but I enjoyed reading it. And it's sort of forced me to read about subjects that I wouldn't usually read about. It's a whole genre that I wouldn't normally get into. It's not entirely about this cat, Dewey, who was named after the duodecimal library indexing system, because he was found in a library in Iowa in the United States of America. Dewey, the ginger kitten, was posted through the library's letterbox where returned books get sent on a very cold night of the year, and the librarians rescued him, kind of helped him survive the first night, and fed him and looked after him, and nobody came to pick up the cat and nobody claimed him, so they claimed the cat for the library. And it tells the story of how they got permission from the sort of cynical and suspicious town council to have the cat in the library, and the difference the cat made to not just the library but to the town. It doesn't feel contrived. It feels like genuinely this cat did make a difference and made life better for a lot of people. But it's not all about the cat. There's a lot of autobiographical stuff about the head librarian herself, who had like quite a difficult life by the sounds of things. And there's a lot of tragedy and disasters, illnesses and family bereavements in the story, which add an emotional thing. It's not a feel-good book totally. There's lots of feel-good in it, but there's sort of sadness, a lot of sadness in it. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say that it tells the account of how Dewey dies in the end as well. And that is very sad. And it's a bit embarrassing to me to feel like I was sadder when the cat died than I was when various humans die in the story. But as a book goes, it's quite well written, I think. Vicki Myron is the head librarian who's responsible for the book. I'm not sure how much she wrote and how much Bret Witter wrote. But it does tell you a lot about small town life in Iowa in the States, and about the experience of being a single mother and having a job and a particular kind of life. So yeah, there's more to it than the cat, but there's enough of cat in it to make it enjoyable, and it doesn't feel like it's kind of too cutesy about the cat. It's got stuff about what Dewey might be thinking, but I feel like it's realistic. It's not kind of too anthropomorphic. So it's not imagining Dewey is a human and what he thinks and what he says. It's got a little bit of that, but it does feel like it's written by somebody that knows about cats and feels like they've got an idea of what cats think and how cats behave and the reasoning behind that, rather than this previous book, which is very anthropomorphic and doesn't really tell you about cats at all. This one does tell you about cats, and yeah, I recommend this, but it's not one I'm going to read again, I don't think. Next book. There's very few books I regret reading at all, and I'm kind of glad I did read this, but I'm not going to read it again. It really annoyed me, and I did flip through some of it. Most books I religiously read every page, every word, and read all the way to the end. This one I kind of did jump through a few bits because I wasn't enjoying it enough. There are several of these RAMA books by Arthur C. Clarke. Arthur C. Clarke, as you probably know, is famous for the 2001 books. There's 3 books in the 2001 series. The first one is the most famous and had the film made of it. There were films made of at least one of the other ones as well. But when I see Arthur C. Clarke in big letters and somebody else's name in smaller letters, I get a bit suspicious. I think, is this book mostly written by somebody else and just endorsed by Arthur C. Clarke? Did he have much to do with the writing at all? The idea of the RAMA books, or the main story, try not to give any spoilers here, is that a giant alien spaceship comes to Earth and humans go up to explore it and have various adventures on the spaceship. But it's all very mysterious. They don't really find out who the aliens are. The ship seems to be somewhat abandoned and empty, and it's a very kind of mystery book and a kind of wonder book. It's the wonder of exploring an alien artifact. And I've read some other Arthur C. Clarke books which are a lot about the wonder of space rather than particular action happening or jeopardy or anything. It's a lot about the characters and the wonder of kind of fantasy, really, of what an alien ship might be like. And that is quite imaginative. So this book is, I think, the 3rd or the 2nd of the RAMA books. And I've read previous books in the RAMA series, and I've kind of wondered why I've not kept them. And when I read this, I kind of thought, oh yeah, that's why I didn't keep them. I read them, I didn't really enjoy them very much, and I got rid of them again. But then I see another one and I think, oh, the RAMA books, they were okay, weren't they? I must have enjoyed them a bit, and I'll try this one because it's only £2.50 or something in a second-hand shop. You can see I've dropped this one in the bath, actually. I was reading it in the bath. I just thought the book genre jumped around so much. It started off with the mysterious object appears, and it's all about the team of people getting together, character development, sort of making plans, the conflict between the individuals. It felt, a bit political, a bit exciting. then it seemed to kind of change into a whodunit at one stage. There's a kind of horror section. Then there's a kind of exploration and wonder and fantasy. There's a bit of a kind of survival against the odds, kind of one person against impossible odds. Then it goes into totally different stuff. It jumps ahead in time. Yeah, I really wanted it to end. You might enjoy it. I hope you do, but I don't. And there are more books in the series as well. I felt it was way too long. There are whole sections it didn't need at all. And yeah, like I said, I was just jumping sections just because I wanted to find out what happened to the characters that I had some interest in. But no. And yeah, there's some trigger warning here maybe. There's some kind of underage sex sections as well, which is a bit disturbing, really. You know, kind of 13-year-olds marrying 60-year-old men and stuff. And I guess it's meant to be about, you know, the kind of extremities people will go to if there's only a few humans left. There's a part where a small group of humans are isolated from Earth. They're taken into space, and what they do to kind of make sure human life continued. But it's a bit icky, really. Not sure about that. And this last book, yet another book I'm not going to keep. But this is one that the ideas are going to stay with me, definitely. This book asks a question: what is consciousness? What is intelligence for? And what if consciousness and intelligence is almost a kind of parasite on our brains? Because intelligence and consciousness and the sense of self use up quite a lot of energy. Maybe it's a kind of a freak occurrence that just happened to humans, and that there are other, what you might call advanced, maybe even intelligent aliens in the universe, but that they don't have our sense of self and our sense of individuality. So that's very interesting. And I'd call this a kind of hard science book, in the sense that there's like footnotes on most pages, and there's a whole notes and reference section at the end. It's just loads of references to scientific papers and other, you know, academic journals and stuff. So it's not an easy read, but there are a lot of good ideas in this, like that idea itself, that maybe the advanced aliens will work entirely on instinct and not have, you know, a kind of intelligence you could communicate with. They just instinctively react to humans when they encountered them. This book is the third or fourth, I'm not sure. It's in a series of other books, which maybe I'll encounter one day, or maybe I won't. But as a standalone book, it does work. A lot of books, you've got to have read the other ones to have got it. This one, I feel like you can read on its own. I think some of it is maybe a bit long. There's a lot of flashbacks to our main character's previous relationship with somebody, which I didn't really feel added anything to the story, so those could have been missed out. And the scientific stuff is quite difficult to read if you're not kind of interested in science, and particularly biological science. You might find it a bit of a hard read. It's a little bit gory in places, not too bad. There's certainly a lot of drama going on, a lot of action, and there are some strong characters as well. It does have a bit of a feel of maybe like the Alien film, not quite the same kind of sense of suspense and attack, but it does feel like the one man standing kind of story a bit, with, you know, one man standing at the end sort of thing. I hope I haven't given away too much there. And there's a lot of wonder, definitely, of kind of meeting aliens, and definitely a lot of imagination. The aliens aren't sort of like humanoids with blobs on their heads like some of the Star Trek and Babylon 5 aliens might be. So I'd recommend this if you're interested in the brain and neuroscience particularly, and want to be made to think. So that's the end of my first science fiction, fantasy and cat books and other books reviews. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope that's given you some ideas of some books you might enjoy reading. If there are any books you've really enjoyed, put them in the comments down below. If I've got it totally wrong on any of these books and you think RAMA is the best book ever, then do say. Let's start some discussion underneath. In the meantime, enjoy your reading. A book is one of the best value things you can have. For a few pounds, you can get hours and hours of enjoyment. It's not fattening, and it's good for your brain. So happy reading. See you soon.